Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
She said it while laughing. Not a nervous laugh, not even a spiteful one. It was the kind of laugh people give when they've already decided you're beneath them, dismissive, dry, like I was some struggling jester trying to explain why the world was upside down. You're supposed to provide, not complain. She actually said that exact sentence. And then she walked out of the kitchen with her wine glass like she had just won a debate she never entered. I didn't follow her. I didn't say anything at all, which might have been what scared me the most. I just stood there, hands still wet from doing the dishes, staring at the half-empty takeout containers on the counter. She had ordered sushi again, 3 rolls for herself, none for me. I had boiled some rice earlier for myself. Cheap, plain, fast. The kitchen smelled like soy sauce and something burning, probably the pan I forgot to rinse from the night before. I should have cared, but in that moment, I felt hollow. Not angry, not hurt, just emptied. We'd been married 9 years. Lived together 11. She used to make dinner every Friday. Her specialty was a pan-seared salmon with garlic butter, nothing fancy, just something that made me feel like I mattered. Now, she had Postmates on speed dial, and somehow always ordered just enough for one. That night, I remember standing in front of the sink, scrubbing dishes that weren't mine, remembering the things I used to tell myself. She's just overwhelmed. She's been under a lot of stress. She doesn't mean it. But that night, something clicked. Or maybe unclicked. I stopped pretending. I replayed her voice in my head, again and again. You're supposed to provide. Like I wasn't already working 55-hour weeks at a job I hated, just so she could freelance part-time for a boutique that hadn't turned a profit in 2 years. Like I hadn't drained my savings to cover her credit card bill last fall, because she forgot she had automated luxury subscription boxes set to $300 a month. Like I hadn't handled the bills, the taxes, the rent, the groceries, the maintenance calls, the paperwork, the budgeting, while she gave me receipts and rolling eyes. And somehow, I wasn't supposed to complain. I should have seen it sooner. It hadn't started overnight. I remember the first time she rolled her eyes when I said I was tired. Please, you sit in a chair all day, she had said. You don't know real work. She was joking. That's what I told myself. Even when it kept happening, sarcastic jabs whenever I brought up burnout, or needing a night off, or simply not being able to carry one more thing, I kept telling myself she didn't mean it. Until she did. I could tell by how casual she was about it now. Her disdain had graduated from passive-aggressive comments to straight-up contempt. She'd started calling herself the brains of the house. Said it proudly to her friends. They'd all giggle like it was some cute inside joke, not realizing, or maybe knowing exactly, how emasculating it felt. She keeps you in line, one of them said once at a dinner party, not knowing I'd heard. You have no idea, she replied, and they burst out laughing. I should have walked out then. I didn't. She'd stopped caring about my presence a long time ago. Conversations had turned into directives, requests into expectations. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a fixture, a silent ATM with muscles. And yet, somehow, it was always my fault. When the Wi-Fi bill got paid late, it was my fault. When the landlord complained about noise, it was my fault, even if she was the one having loud midnight FaceTimes with her sister. When she missed a client call after a night of wine and scrolling Instagram, it was my fault for not reminding her. When she overdrafted her account, I should have checked sooner. You're supposed to provide. That line didn't just sting. It told me everything I needed to know. It meant she'd already rewritten the contract of our marriage without telling me. I was no longer someone she loved. I was something she used. Like a wrench in a toolbox. You don't thank the wrench. You just expect it to work when needed. And when it wears out, you replace it. That night, after she went upstairs, I finished the dishes. Then I walked over to the fridge and pulled off the calendar we shared. The one with couples budget review, marked for Sunday. The one with vision board night, circled in green. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I crumpled it up, dropped it in the trash, and poured myself the last of the wine she left on the table. I sat in silence, sipping slowly. I didn't know it then, but I'd already started my exit. Not physically. Not yet. But emotionally. Spiritually. I was done. Next time she needed me to fix her laptop, I'd tell her to YouTube it. Next time she overdrew her account, I'd let the bank teach her. Next time she wanted me to carry her life on my shoulders, she'd be the one walking uphill. Because if I'm just a provider, then I get to decide when I stop providing. And I had just made that decision. Quietly. cleanly, without complaint. She didn't notice the change at first. The next morning, I made my own breakfast quietly, without waking her, and left for work early. I didn't kiss her goodbye. I didn't ask if she wanted anything from the store. No notes. No check-ins. Just silence. It wasn't a tantrum. It was surgical. For the first time in years, I stopped overfunctioning. I stopped filling the hole she refused to acknowledge. If she wanted me to be a provider and nothing more, I was going to show her what provision looked like, without the extras. Without the reminders, the cushions, the emotional labor. Just the basics. The bare minimum. I pulled back from our shared calendar. No more meal planning. No chore coordination. No project tracking. I let her find out the hard way that the dog's grooming appointment had lapsed and the gas bill was 2 weeks overdue. She mentioned it like it was an external disaster. Didn't you say you were going to call about the gas? I looked up from my laptop, shrugged. Nope. She blinked like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. That was the first time she seemed off balance. Like someone moved her safety net and didn't tell her. I wasn't cruel. I didn't yell. I still paid rent, covered my own expenses, kept the car fueled and functional. I didn't even argue when she took my charger or used my Amazon account without asking, things that used to set me off. I just let it be. But I also didn't bail her out. The next week, when she found herself short on her end of the groceries, just $20, she casually said, "Can you spot me till Friday?" I smiled. You're supposed to provide for yourself, right? She thought I was joking. I wasn't. She tried her usual tricks, passive guilt, sighs, head shakes, exaggerated annoyance, but I kept everything surface level. I was polite, calm, distant. The kind of treatment you give to a polite stranger in a waiting room. The more I withheld, the more she reached, and the more she reached, the more obvious her dependency became. By week 2, I could see the shift in her posture. She came home with fewer shopping bags. She didn't order sushi. She actually made spaghetti one night, burnt it, of course, and blamed the stove, but it was the first home-cooked meal in months. She didn't apologize for mocking me. Didn't mention the comment, but I could feel her testing the air between us, as if trying to read a language she forgot how to speak. That Thursday, she tried a new approach. You know, I've been thinking, she said, casually stirring coffee she didn't offer to share. Maybe we should set aside a weekend to talk. About everything. Reset. I nodded. Maybe. She wasn't used to maybe. She was used to me jumping through hoops, rearranging meetings, booking the cabin she liked upstate. But I wasn't playing the old game anymore. I was listening to something deeper, something in me that had stayed quiet for too long. That night, I pulled up our joint account and removed my name from the overdraft protection. I didn't transfer money. I didn't shut it down. I just stopped guarding it. She'd been using it to cover freelance dry spells and last-minute splurges, always assuming I'd plug the holes before fees hit. Now the hole could breathe. 2 days later, she overdrew on a Target run. I didn't say a word when she came storming into the living room. You changed the bank settings? She demanded. I looked up from my book. I didn't touch your card. She didn't ask me to fix it. She just stood there, blinking, as if she'd stepped into an alternate reality where I wasn't on standby. Then came the slow burn, the subtle unraveling. She started noticing the small things. The laundry stayed unfolded. The toilet paper ran low. Her favorite makeup wipes, normally replenished by me, were gone. She asked, "Didn't you get groceries this week?" Nope. Just mine. I saw the twitch in her cheek. The house felt colder, not because I'd changed the thermostat, but because I stopped filling it with effort. She began talking louder on the phone, as if narrating to an invisible audience. I swear, I'm doing everything, she told her sister one night. He's just withdrawn. Of course I was. That was the point. She wanted the throne, the crown, and the credit. Now she had it, all the way down to the dusting and the dish soap. She started making lists. To-do lists. Budget spreadsheets. Google Calendar events she shared with me as if that would lure me back into the role I'd vacated. I didn't ignore them. I just didn't engage. And then, one night, after dinner she cobbled together from frozen leftovers, she walked into the living room with a strange look on her face. Are you mad at me? I looked at her for a long second. No, I said honestly. I'm not mad. I'm just done carrying things that aren't mine. She opened her mouth. Closed it. I watched her eyes search for the right emotional manipulation, sympathy, rage, denial, but none of them landed. Because I wasn't fighting anymore. She thought I was sulking. She still didn't get it. I wasn't sulking. I was watching. watching her try to balance the weight she once demanded I carry alone. And I was going to let her. Because some lessons don't sink in until they hit your bank account, your stomach, and your silence at the dinner table. The only thing I was waiting on now was the moment she'd crack. And I had a feeling it wasn't far away. I think she expected me to fold within a week. Maybe two. That's the thing about people who take you for granted. They don't believe you're capable of change until it's too late. They think the silence is temporary, that the machine they rely on will reboot itself, as always. And when it doesn't, panic sets in. It started small. Missed deadlines, forgotten errands, late fees she swore were just a fluke. I stayed silent. I didn't gloat. I didn't offer help. I just let the engine stall and watched as she looked for someone else to crank it. She started calling her sister more often. I'd overhear whispers from the bedroom. Do you think he's cheating? That part made me laugh. The thought that I had time, let alone the energy, to sneak around when I was already exhausted from cleaning up after her for 9 years. But it wasn't about infidelity. It was about control. She was looking for a crack in me, and when she didn't find it, she turned outward. She went out for drinks with friends twice that week. Dressed sharper. Posted stories on Instagram that screamed, "I'm thriving." Classic smokescreen. One night she came home tipsy and tried to cuddle up next to me on the couch. "You've been so cold lately," she murmured, tracing her finger along my arm. "Don't you miss us?" I didn't flinch. "Which version of US are you talking about?" That was the first time she looked genuinely nervous. The next day, she tried making breakfast. Burnt the toast, scrambled the eggs until they were dry. I ate in silence. She waited for a compliment. I gave her a nod. She hated that more than any insult I could have thrown. 2 days later, she bounced a rent transfer. I got a notification from the landlord. First time that's happened since we moved in together. I didn't cover it. She texted me while I was at work. "Can you fix the rent thing?" I forgot my card was linked to the boutique payment system. "Nope," I replied. "I'm not the one who missed it." She didn't respond. But when I got home, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. She stormed into the living room. "Are you seriously going to let us get penalized over a stupid mistake?" I met her eyes. Calm. Still. Yes. She didn't know what to do with that. She stood there, lips parted, waiting for me to soften. When I didn't, she launched into a rant about shared responsibilities and how real men step up when things get tough. I smiled. "Funny. I said the same thing for years." You laughed. She turned away before I could see her face fall, but I saw her shoulders. I saw them collapse. That week, she started applying for more clients. She began working longer hours, trying to pull together the money she used to depend on me for. One night, I caught her crying in the laundry room, folding the same towel 3 times. She didn't hear me come in. I walked back out. A few nights later, she brought home one of those boxed dinner kits. You know, the kind influencers shill for on podcasts. She cooked, set the table for 2, lit candles. I sat down and ate. She said, "Maybe we needed this to reset." I didn't reply. She kept trying to get me to talk. About work. About bills. About memories. But I just kept chewing. She finally snapped. "This isn't how marriage works, you know." "Maybe not," I said. "But this is how respect works." She stared at me. I watched her squint like she was trying to decipher a new language. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't ask why. She didn't even knock. The next morning, her tone changed again. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her problem. "You've turned into someone else," she said as I grabbed my keys for work. "No," I replied. I stopped pretending. And I had. I stopped pretending that her freeloading was love. That her dismissiveness was just how she copes with stress. That her laziness was something we were working through. Now she was drowning in the same waters I'd been treading for years. She started sending long texts during the day, telling me how overwhelmed she was. That she needed more time, more space, more patience. I ignored them. Not to be cruel, but because I didn't believe in rescuing someone who set fire to the life raft and called it empowerment. One night, I came home to find she'd packed a bag. Not all her stuff. Just enough for a few nights. "I'm staying with Vanessa," she said. "I need to breathe." "Okay." Just like that. Just like that. She looked at me, waiting. I didn't give her anything. What she didn't realize was, I wanted this. Not her leaving, necessarily, but the moment where she'd run out of people to blame. Vanessa wouldn't tolerate her nonsense for long. That was the secret she never learned. The world outside this house didn't owe her what I did. The patience. The money. The excuses. She'd learn that soon enough. Because the thing about people who think they're always right, they rarely survive without a scapegoat. And I had just stopped being one. She lasted 11 days at Vanessa's. Not bad, considering how fast Vanessa cycled through pity. I knew the moment my phone buzzed and her name popped up on the screen, she wasn't calling to talk. She was calling because the walls were closing in. I let it ring out. The voicemail that followed was long, dramatic. She said she was doing her best and couldn't believe I would abandon her like this. She ended it with, "You're still my husband." No, not anymore. She came back the next evening. I heard the keys fumble in the lock like she wasn't sure if I changed it. I hadn't. Not yet. That wasn't the game I was playing. She dragged her suitcase through the doorway like she'd survived a natural disaster. Didn't even look me in the eye. "I'll stay out of your way," she muttered. "Just need a few days to figure things out." I didn't respond. She took over the guest room, brought in her makeup bag, her silk pillowcase, even a jar of collagen powder like this was some yoga retreat instead of the fallout of her own ego. By day 3, I started getting mail addressed to her in panic font. Urgent. Account delinquent. She didn't ask me for help, but I saw her pacing late at night, whispering on the phone to her credit card company, her voice tight and strained. She had started selling things online. Her designer heels. The espresso machine she once insisted we couldn't live without. I watched her photograph items in the living room with cold lighting and captions like, "Only used once, great condition." It wasn't about watching her suffer. It was about watching her finally understand the math. Because here's the thing, reality doesn't bend to attitude. And she had built her life on the assumption that I would always bend before the world ever pushed back. She was wrong. One night she knocked on my door. First time she'd done that since coming back. "Can we talk?" I let her in. She sat on the edge of the bed, clutching a mug of tea like it was the only warmth left in her life. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about how things got like this. And I don't think it's fair that you're acting like I never contributed anything." That sentence almost made me laugh. "Contributed?" I asked. "Is that what this is about? You want a ledger?" Her face hardened. "You're acting like I've been dead weight. But I've supported you too. Emotionally. Creatively. I believed in you when no one else did." "Did you?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. I walked to the nightstand and pulled out something I had saved for months. A leather notebook. My records. My list. I handed it to her. Page 23. She flipped through it, confused. And then, her face drained. Because there, in black ink, was a simple tally. Every grocery run I did alone. Every utility bill paid from my account. Every doctor appointment I scheduled for her. Every birthday party I funded. Every time she dismissed me with, "You're supposed to provide." There were dates. Times. Quotes. Even receipts. "This is psychotic," she said softly. "No," I said. "This is what you called normal. I just started keeping track." She set the notebook down like it burned. "You've been planning this." "No," I corrected. "I've been remembering. You just didn't think I would." She started crying. The first real tears. Not crocodile ones. Not dramatic. Just quiet, embarrassed tears. "I thought you loved me," she whispered. I did. The silence between us was deep and final. The next morning, she didn't say anything. She just left. Again. This time, she didn't go to Vanessa's. I didn't know where she went. Didn't care. What I did know was that she couldn't afford to stay anywhere for long. Not without the life she drained from me. A week passed. Then 2. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail again. Same voice. More desperate. She said she was staying with a friend from high school. That things were complicated. That she was trying to rebuild. She asked if we could talk about a fresh start. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop. Went to a folder I'd been building. Inside was a short audio clip. I had recorded it the night she laughed at me in the kitchen. The night she said, "You're supposed to provide, not complain." That line. That moment. That smug little laugh. I sent it to her mother. Her father. Her 2 closest friends. People who once smirked when she said I was lucky to have her. I didn't add commentary. No caption. Just a 3-second clip. She never replied. But a few days later, I got a message from one of her friends. Just 3 words. "We had no idea." No, they didn't. But now they do. And the best part? I didn't lift a finger. I just let her prove it herself. 6 months later, I barely recognized her. She wasn't dressed in one of her branded designer jackets or silk blouses anymore. Just a plain, wrinkled hoodie and worn jeans that didn't quite fit the same. No lashes. No glossed-over perfection. The woman standing in front of me looked human, tired, shrunken, real. I saw her outside my new apartment building, standing next to the call box. One hand stuffed deep into her pocket, the other holding her phone like it was the last anchor to her old life. She hadn't buzzed yet. She was just standing there, hesitating. I didn't move. Eventually, she did. One shaky press of the buzzer. No message. Just a dull, single ring. I let her in. Not because I missed her. Not because I wanted to entertain some reconciliation fantasy. But because I needed to see for myself how far reality had taken her. The kind of reality no lecture, no diary, no bank account could teach. She walked in like a stranger. The apartment was small. Clean. Quiet. No marble counters. No curated art pieces. Just enough. Minimal. Everything mine. This is different, she said, her voice cracking slightly as she scanned the room. Smaller. Yeah, I replied, sitting down. But everything in it works. And I pay for all of it myself. She nodded slowly, then sat across from me, legs crossed awkwardly, like she couldn't figure out where to place herself in a space she no longer owned. She didn't even ask if I'd been seeing anyone. She knew better. I've been thinking, she began. A lot. I let her talk. She told me how her freelance clients dried up when she couldn't hit deadlines. How she'd tried living with a friend, but they had a falling out over money. That she'd tried to get help from her parents, but they weren't as eager to rescue the girl who spent a decade looking down on them. Her words, not mine. She took a deep breath. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was strong enough to build something on my own. And she shook her head. I didn't realize how much of our life you carried until I had to carry even a tenth of it. I said nothing. Let the silence breathe. It filled the space better than any scolding could. I messed up, she whispered. I know I did. The things I said. The way I treated you. I thought you'd never leave. That you'd always stay. That was the truth of it. She never believed I'd walk. And when I did, her entire identity collapsed. Because it was never built on strength. Just on the assumption that someone else would always catch her fall. She leaned forward. I want to try again. I want to start over. I've been looking for work. Real work. I've been trying to fix things. I even started paying off the debt. I know I can be different. I let her finish. And then, calmly, I stood and walked to the bookshelf. Pulled out a small, black flash drive. The same one that held the clip. Her words. Her laugh. That smug voice from that night in the kitchen. You're supposed to provide, not complain. I handed it to her. What's this? That's the person I'm not going back to, I said. The version of you I lived with for 9 years. She didn't play it. She didn't have to. The memory was already burning behind her eyes. I'm not angry, I said quietly. I'm not bitter. I'm not here to hurt you. But you need to know, there's no reset button. No rewind. You didn't break a vase. You broke me. And I rebuilt myself without you. She swallowed hard. Tears welled, but didn't fall. I think she knew they wouldn't help here. Please, she whispered. I shook my head. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it to finally protect myself. She stood, looked around the apartment one last time like it was something sacred she knew she'd never be invited into again. I hope you find someone who appreciates what you gave, she said. I hope you find a way to give without taking, I replied. She didn't argue. She just nodded, turned, and walked out the door. No slamming. No final dramatic plea. Just the quiet footsteps of someone who finally understood what they destroyed. And me? I stood in that silence, feeling more peace than I'd known in years. Not because I won, but because I stopped losing. She had mocked me for complaining while I carried the world on my shoulders. Now she was out there trying to build her own, and realizing that weight never cared what you thought you deserved. It just demanded to be carried. And this time, it wasn't mine to lift.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.